Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm filming my top books of 2021 and I have some amazing books to talk to you about today. Some of these books are definitely like my favourite books of all time now and I'm just so excited to talk about a few of them. This actually wasn't a hard list to put together because when I went onto my favourites shelf on Goodreads, I'd added exactly 10 books to my favourite shelf in 2021, which is just a pure coincidence. So that's pretty cool. But the first three, I'm just going to kind of skim over because I did really love them at the time, but I read them right at the start of the year and I feel like I'm just not as passionate about them now. So we're going to skim over those a little bit. But the ones like to the top of the list are some top tier books, so I'm excited to talk about them today. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and please subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books in the comments and let's get started with the list. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Nana by Emile Zola. This is a French classic and it was my favourite book of the year back in February, and this follows Nana, who becomes a high-class prostitute and basically destroys the lives of all of the men around her. They are selling her their property, they're ending their marriages, they are doing anything they can to please her, and she's just sucking up all their money and jewels and property and like everything. And it was honestly just like such an interesting and amazing character, and I talked about in my review for this the last 50 pages of this book and how wild it was, and I fully can't remember the details now, so I'm really excited to one day go back and reread this because I just remember putting that book down and being like, oh my god, like that was a crazy ride, that was a wild experience. So that's definitely one that I am excited to go back to. I also really loved Emile Zola's writing style in general. He is really descriptive and sometimes it takes a while to get to the point, but I just thought that the way he wrote was so genius and so clever, and I really want to read more by him. I also read another book by him that I didn't love as much, but Nana, I just remember being like so impressed with. Like, it was one of those books that I put it down and I just sat for 5 minutes and just like reveled in the experience of reading it. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Battle Royale by Kushin Takami. This is a Japanese book and is a dystopian about a group of classmates from one school, and every year, I think it's every year, I don't know, a group of classmates have to go to this island anyway and fight to the death until one survives. So it's kind of similar to the Hunger Games, but there's no entertainment aspect to it. It's more just about government control and fear, and not about, well, I guess the Hunger Games is about that as well, but anyway, it's different. And it's also so gory, it's so violent. Like, this is not a YA book, this is definitely adult. And I just absolutely adored how there is this huge cast of characters, okay? So it's so hard to kind of keep track at first of like who's who because there is just so many characters. Like, it's a huge cast. But there's so many characters that you're introduced to in the same chapter that they die, and somehow the author makes every single one of these characters unique and personable, and you become attached to them, and their death is sad even though you only met them like 12 pages before. And I just thought it was like, again, so well constructed and so well put together, because although at first you're like, oh my god, how am I ever going to keep track of this big cast of characters, once it narrows down to like the main core cast, all of them are just so interesting, so well developed, such interesting relationships between the different classmates and stuff like that, and I just absolutely loved it. It's a very big book. Like, I do definitely want to reread this one as well at some point, but it was quite a thick boy. But actually really easy to read because it is just so many short chapters, which I am a sucker for short chapters. So yeah, absolutely love Battle Royale, highly recommend. The movie's so good as well. I'd watched the movie before I read the book, so I kind of knew what happened, but obviously it's just a totally different experience reading the book. The next book I'm going to talk about is Patron, Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebai. This is about a Filipino-American boy who discovers that his cousin back in the Philippines has been killed as part of the war on drugs by the government, and he goes back to investigate his cousin's murder and just figure out, what is going on in the Philippines. And it's all about him coming to terms with his Filipino identity and what it means to be half Filipino, half American, and how he can relate to his American side but then also his Filipino side. And I just absolutely loved how much I learned about the Philippines from this book. You learn so much about the culture, the people, the food, the music, the literature, just so much. The current like government war on drugs, I didn't know anything about this. I hadn't really heard anything about this before, and it just made me do a lot of more research on my own into these different topics, and I just thought it was like such a interesting book, not just for the actual plot itself, but just how much it taught me, and that's what I really loved about this one. I just think it was unlike any other book I really read this year in terms of, getting a real cultural understanding of a different place on the earth. And I read quite a lot of books by different authors from different countries this year, but this one more than any really stood out to me has been like so proud of its heritage, and the author is obviously just so proud of being Filipino, but obviously also, you know, he shows there's dark sides to Philippines like any other place on earth. You know, there's amazing sides, there's amazing people, and then there's the bad sides and there's the bad people. So I just thought like this book was really, really good. The writing was really easy to read as well. It's a YA book, so I flew through it, and I actually read this as part of a vlog for one of my friends' favourite books series. It was Therese, and yeah, I just was really impressed by this book and just loved how much about the Philippines that it taught me. So the next book I'm going to talk about is The Young Team by Graham Armstrong, and this is a Scottish book. Graham Armstrong grew up very close to where I grew up, and the book is set very close to where I grew up, so I know the area and I know the people in the book. Like, it's a fictional book, obviously about fictional characters, but it's so clearly based on, you know, the author's real life experience, and it's such a common, you know, Scottish experience for that time period. It was based in like the early 2000s for the most part, and follows Azzy Williams, who joins the Young Team, which is like a youth gang, and you know, they have a lot of violence, a lot of drugs. It basically destroys their life. They can't go to school without violence. They can't walk down the street without there being violence. People getting attacked, stabbed, even killed. You know, they can't sleep in their house without windows being smashed, things like that. And you know, drugs are just so prominent, and it sounds like, you know, strange to say, but like it was just so realistic to growing up in central Scotland at that time. The book is also written in, you know, the dialect of the area, which even as someone who, you know, grew up around that, it's hard to read at first, but once you get through it, it's definitely worth it. It adds so much to the story and to the characters and just really makes it stand out. And I just thought this was so good. I just absolutely love, you know, finding Scottish authors that I love their work, because obviously being Scottish myself, I would love to, you know, say like every Scottish author is amazing, but that's realistically not true. And I think my issue with a lot of Scotland, or Scottish fiction, sorry, that's coming out, is that a lot of it is more historical, based on like the 70s, 80s, and although this one was still not current day, it was like 20 years ago set, it was, you know, when I was growing up, so I could really clearly, you know, picture everything, and I was like, I knew the people in the book. That's how I felt. I was like, I know these people. Like, they were just such archetypes of people that I grew up around. So I love this book and I highly recommend it. It's definitely a challenge to get into it first because of the dialect that it's written in, but once you get past that, it was amazing. So next we're going to talk about The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and I feel like this one doesn't need an introduction. This is a dystopian classic at this point, about a society where women are extremely oppressed. They are basically reduced to, you know, baby making machines or housewives or, you know, servants, and they're not allowed to speak, they're not allowed, you know, lives of their own. And I absolutely just adored how this novel takes place when this society, this dystopian society, is still new and still fresh, and our main character remembers life before. So we watch the United States of America become Gilead, I think it's how you pronounce it. I've still never worked out how you pronounce the place, but you watch its progress into this, you know, dystopian society, and it's so scary because although it seems outlandish, it seems so over the top, it's not so far out of the realm of possibility. You know, like when you compare the events of this book to, for example, the riots that happened in DC where they stormed like the Capitol building, although it's not exactly one-to-one parallels, like that is kind of how it's something like that that starts the society in Handmaid's Tale, you know, like the government being overrun in that way just by, you know, political opponents, but they're actually terrorists. I don't know, I don't want to get into politics, but you know, it was just really surreal to read about these women being oppressed in this way that isn't so far out of the realm of possibility. Like, it's not unrealistic, it doesn't rely on unrealistic technology, it's all just about, you know, surveillance cameras, and also just like, you can't trust people around you, you can't trust your friends, you can't trust the people you live with. Anyone could report you at any time, and I just thought like everything about it was so well written, so clever. I feel like I've said that for every book, but it's true, like that's why they're in my top 10 books, you know, all of them, all the books in this list were just so amazingly written. And yeah, I also read the sequel, which I enjoyed as a lot as well. I gave it 5 stars as well, but I think it ruined a little bit of the mystique to The Handmaid's Tale about the society. It kind of gave you a bit too much detail, but yeah, I just thought The Handmaid's Tale was perfect. Next, let's discuss Call Me By Your Name by Andrew Ackerman, and I also feel like this one does not need an introduction. This is a gay love story about an American man who goes to Italy and forms a relationship with an Italian boy who is the son of the people he is staying with, and it's a very toxic, dark romance. It is set from the point of view of the younger Italian boy, and his point of view is so disturbing at times, but I absolutely love that. I love dark, twisted, disturbing romance. Some of the things he said, the one that sticks with me the most is when he talks about wanting to cripple the other love interest so that he is dependent on him for the rest of his life. And I just, things like that are so dark and evil, but come from such a deep, passionate place, I just think are so interesting and so crazy. But yeah, I just absolutely love this book up until the end. So I read the book, and then watched the movie. Where the movie ends is exactly where this book should have ended. I did not like the last however many pages of this book where we're set in the future and we see the two main characters grown up. I just thought it was pathetic, and it almost ruined the book for me, to be honest. I really didn't like that part, but mentally I just blocked it out. I was pretending that bit didn't exist, and the book ends where I wanted it to end, because up until that point I was absolutely loving this, and I think it just dragged a little bit at the end. But yeah, I don't know, I just love dark, twisted romance, like I already said, and this was a perfect example of that. And a lot of people have an issue with the age gap. I don't care about that, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's a bad age gap, I don't think it's ridiculous. I also don't think it's immoral, it's just a slight age gap. But everyone has their own opinion on that. And that's your choice. But yeah, I thought Call Me By Your Name was so good. I haven't decided if I want to read the sequel yet. I'm really not sure if I want to, because like I said, I really didn't like the bit in the future that was with the two characters. So I don't know how if I want to do the sequel. We'll see. So next, The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting by Ivana Lynch. This is a non-fiction memoir, which I know you really wouldn't expect to see from me on a top 10 books, but I listened to this on audiobook, and it was read by Ivana Lynch herself, which I absolutely love when, non-fiction autobiographies or memoirs, etc. are read by the person who wrote it, because it just gives such an extra element. They can really give the inflections of voice that they intended to put into their words, and it just feels like you're being told a life story. Well, that's literally what it is. You're being told this person's life story by them, and it just adds a whole extra element to it. So I listened to this on audiobook, and Ivana Lynch is the actress of Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. But before she was in the movies, she suffered from a very serious eating disorder, so this mostly focuses on her younger self and how she sort of developed these tendencies, and then into her life as, having a full-blown eating disorder and having to go to different hospitals for it, different treatments, and how she thought she would never fully recover. And, through just her own power, she did, and she would then went on to be very successful, obviously being in the Harry Potter movies, and then now she is a vegan activist, and I absolutely love Ivana Lynch as a person. I listened to her podcast anyway, so when she said she was writing a book, I was intrigued, and then I found out this was the topic, because she, I know about her eating disorder, she is not shy about it, she discusses it. But I really think that, this book is her closing the lid on that part of her life, and just saying, my story's out there, all the gory details, this really went into the dark, disgusting, gory details. She's it's all out there, she's kind of over it, and I think that was so powerful, and this whole book was just so powerful, so mesmerizing. She's just such an amazing person, to be honest. I just absolutely love her. I've always loved her. Luna was my favorite book character, my favorite movie character. I was obsessed with Ivana when I was younger, and then when I found out she was vegan, it's this whole new thing. I just love her as a person. I think she's amazing, so I would highly recommend this. I will say it's a little bit triggering. It does go into a lot of detail about eating disorders. She never discusses numbers or the number on the scales or how many calories she's eating, stuff like that, but she does not shy away from the details, of how dangerous her eating disorder was. So yeah, really loved this book. Definitely think I will listen to it again. It's a heavy one though, but yeah, she just wrote so well and so from the heart. There was so many passages where the stuff she was saying, about for her parents, for example, who she says she loves them, but she's just so brutally honest about the things they were doing that made her eating disorder worse, and she was kind of mean at points, but it had to be said, and I don't know, I just think it was excellent. So we're into our top 3 books, and the third place goes to Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I really wasn't sure what, you know, place 3 and place 2 were going to be. They've talked about it so much. They're basically interchangeable, but I'm giving it to Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So this is a classic mystery novel, and it is all about this woman who marries this extremely rich man and goes to his home, Manderley, where all the servants and everyone just treat her a little bit off because the shadow of his ex-wife, Rebecca, basically looms over the whole estate. Everyone she meets, she compares her to Rebecca, you know, his family, the servants themselves, his friends, like everyone, herself especially, you know, she's in this house and she's sitting at a desk and everything in the desk is like Rebecca's stationery, the clothes are like that she finds lying around are Rebecca's clothes, stuff like that. And it is so suspenseful, so well written. The romance aspect again is very dark, very twisted at times, which I absolutely loved. But the point where this put this book up to like this high on my list of like my favourite books of the year, I don't want to spoil it. Like, it is a mystery kind of thriller book, so obviously there's going to be a twist. So I feel like it's not a spoiler to say there's a twist, but when that twist came, I'm not even kidding on. I have never had that much of a physical reaction to a book before. I actually like gasped. I was like in shock. I had to put the book down. I was like, my heart was racing, and I don't know why like I reacted that much to it, like in retrospect, but I don't know, there's just something about the way it was written and like how clever it was. Like, I was just obsessed, and Daphne du Maurier is my second favourite author of the year. I was going to make a favourite author of the year video. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore, but I just absolutely love Daphne du Maurier. I've read 4 of her books now, and I just want to read everything back. No, I read 5 actually, because I read one in the past, which was the non-fiction on Branwell Bronte. But yeah, I just think that she is amazing at writing, like the characters, the depth, the locations, like the location of Manderley. Like Manderley, the house, the manor house, is like its own character. And it is so just beautifully written and, you know, so clever as well with like the twists and everything. So yeah, Rebecca was amazing, top tier, like absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. It's one of those books as well that like I could recommend it to anyone. Like, even if you don't like classics or don't read classics, you could read Rebecca. Like, it feels so modern. But yeah, 10 out of 10, not a single flaw. So my second favourite book of the year was My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And again, this is just one that I had such like a physical, visceral reaction to. Like, I did not stop thinking about it for weeks after I read it. It was one of those ones I put it down and I finished it. And I wanted to just start over again from the start. Like, I absolutely adored this book. And it was just something else. So it is about a girl who is groomed and goes into a relationship with her English teacher while she is at this boarding school. And you have like one chapter where she's younger in the boarding school, and then like one chapter where she's older, like dealing with her feelings. And the thing is, she is still in contact with him, she still loves him, and she still thinks that their relationship wasn't that bad. But, you know, more stuff comes out about him, and he's exposed for actually having these relationships with other girls, and she realizes like she wasn't special, and that, you know, it was just that she was an easy target and easy prey. And their relationship as adults doesn't reflect on the fact that he did, you know, molest her, rape her, all sorts of stuff to her when she was younger. And it's just, again, I've said it so many times in this video, but it's so cleverly written. Like, I just like felt so much for Vanessa. Like, I honestly, like, some parts of this book were so hard to read. Like, I'm not someone who's like, I don't know, triggered or anything by books, but some parts of this were like a lot. It's very heavy. It's one of those ones where like I don't really give trigger warnings, to be honest, unless it's necessary. Like, I think a lot of people like do it a little bit, like overdo it a little bit. But this one, like, you definitely like need to beware. Like, going in, this is a heavy book, but it was amazing. Like, I have just never felt so passionately connected to this girl. Like, I just wanted the best for her, and the things that she went through, I don't know. I just like, it was a lot. It's one of those books where, I don't know, like, it's actually hard to talk about just why I loved it so much, because it's such a dark topic as well. It's such a weird like one to love, but like the people I've spoke to that love it, like everyone is kind of the same. Like, they're like, I just felt so much for this girl, and you wanted the best for her. And what I liked as well is that as an adult, she's so complex and so complicated. Like, she realizes that what she went through wasn't right, but she also is okay with it in a way, except she's obviously not. But in her head, like, she hasn't processed it fully. She thinks like it was love and stuff. I don't know, it's just so complicated and there's so much to it that I couldn't even put it into words. I couldn't do it justice. But yeah, I absolutely loved my Dark Vanessa, and if you're capable of reading a book like about this really dark subject matter, I could not recommend that enough. And then finally, in my number one space, to no surprise to anyone that has been subscribed to me over the last year, we have The Belgian by Sylvia Plath. I absolutely fell in love with this book. I read it twice last year, which I never read the same book twice in 1 year, but honestly, I almost read it a third time as well. Like back in December, I was like, I just want to read The Belgian again. So this book follows our main character Esther as she goes to college and basically, long story short, suffers a big mental breakdown and spirals into really deep, dark depression that she feels totally unable to get herself out of and has to go through treatment and stuff for it. And I feel like it takes a certain person to become obsessed with this book, and like I am that person. You know, my favourite artist is Lana Del Rey. That says it all. You know, like I just could relate to so much that happens in this book, so much of her feelings. I really just saw myself in this character, and although, you know, I've never been in some of the places she's been in, I have been in others. I don't know, I don't want to go into too many details, but I just felt so, again, just viscerally related to this book. Like this book felt like it was written for me. Like everything that our main character thought, or thoughts that I've had, like everything that, the way she acts, I could relate to. Like I honestly just felt like me and Sylvia Plath have this like bond where we understood each other, and like this book honestly did feel like it was written for me, and that's basically as much as I can summarize it as. And you know, for someone who's read this book twice, I can't even say much more than that, because I don't know, it's just such a personal connection that I think you don't really understand until you feel it yourself for a book. Like other books in the past that I've thought were my favourite books, like nah, once I read The Belgian, I was like, this is it, like this book is my book. So yeah, absolutely love The Belgian. Again, a very dark topic. As you could probably can tell, I'm attracted to, you know, darker topics. They speak to me. But yeah, absolutely love The Belgian. Loved it. 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10, 100 stars out of 10. So those are my top 10 books of the year. I actually have COVID right now and I feel like I'm speaking a bit lower than normal. So hopefully my voice has been okay and, you know, it hasn't ruined the video. But yeah, I just love how I really made it a goal in 2021 to read authors from a variety of different countries, and I just realised as I was making this video that my top 10 books actually really does reflect that. I'm actually going to edit in like the flag of where each author comes from, just for my own like enjoyment, because I just was going through, I was like, you know what, I actually have like a really varied list here, varied list here. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts on any of these books, if you love them, if you hate them, please let me know in the comments, especially if you hate them. I love how, you know, a book that I think is my favourite of the year, someone else will say it's the worst book they've ever read. I just think that's so interesting. So anything you have to say, discuss it in the comments and I will get back to you. And please subscribe for more videos. Hopefully my voice is better soon. I don't even know if it's going to pick up on camera. I just feel like in my head right now when I'm speaking, I'm like, it sounds a bit weird. But anyway, yeah, thank you for watching and I'll see you in my next video.